Hi there, it's Llarold, and today I'm making a video about Season 4 of Dragonflight. Blizzard dropped some advanced information about Season 4 last night with a really interesting blue post that we're going to read through in a second here, and then we're going to talk about the best tier set bonuses for tanks in this expansion. But before I do, let's just quickly ask the question, what is Season 4? Why does it exist? I guess that's two questions. Blizzard came up with this concept in Shadowlands, and it's a compromise for players who were upset by the insanely long content drought that used to occur at the end of every expansion. You could go an entire year, and all of us did, with no new raid, no new dungeons, no new Mythic Plus season, nothing really to do. That's totally unacceptable for a live service game with a subscription model in the modern era. Now, a lot of players complained in Shadowlands that Season 4 was just a retread of the old raids from the current expansion with a couple of new affixes thrown in to lightly spice things up. These people were 100% correct, but what they wanted instead was an entirely new raid, which just kicks the can down the road. Raids take Blizzard a really long time to make. They're the thing that takes the longest, so instead of waiting an entire year after the third raid, they wanted to wait an entire year after the fourth raid. That doesn't solve the problem. And yeah, this basically just means Season 4 is a few months of wacky farm raids, but it also means we get a new expansion with bigger class balance measures, new features like Delve, or new classes, or new races, about 9 months sooner than we would if we got a fourth raid. I can live with that compromise, and for what it's worth, I actually liked Vault of the Incarnates and Aberrus, so going back to those is going to be fun for me. Now, as for Mythic Plus, Blizzard gives players a new set of dungeons to do. That's new content for Mythic Plus, that's all it takes. It's all good. And that's the tone I wanted to set before moving on here. Season 4 of Raid is farm content. Maybe you like Farm Raid, so you like Season 4. I do, and I do. Maybe you hate Farm Raid, you hate the people you're raiding with, whatever it is, and you don't like it? Too bad, I guess. Season 4 of Mythic Plus is absolutely just another competitive season of real content. Okay, now let's read that blue post. In Dragonflight Season 4, we're going to try something new. We're preparing a remixed set of gear for each specialization. To determine what that means for each class and spec, we're asking you to vote for your favorite class look and your favorite specialization set bonuses from the first 3 seasons of Dragonflight. That means that in Season 4, Demon Hunters might vote for a set that has the look of Season 1, with Season 2 set bonuses for Havoc, and Season 3 set bonuses for Vengeance. We've opened a poll for every class and every spec. You can vote now on your favorites, and the winners will determine what we build into the endgame for Season 4. Please keep in mind that we're going to update the power of the set bonuses to match the increased power of the new gear in Season 4, so any bonuses you choose will be tuned as strong as any others. I've seen a lot of criticism of the idea of voting, that the last time players were allowed to vote for stuff, we got Grimrail Depot, and I think that's very fair. However, in this case, people are voting about stuff related to their classes. I think for the most part, people aren't voting against their own interest. I think everything will be fine. There's definitely been some talk of people saying, you know, vote for the bad tier sets for mage so that so that they're bad or whatever. A lot of class fighting, but I think that's a minor thing ultimately. So with that being said, and with it bearing in mind that Mythic Plus really is the main thrust of Season 4, I want to take a look at all the tank tier set bonuses from the expansion. Squishy very nicely compiled all of them on a Wowhead post, saving me the work of having to go do this by hand, which I was going to do. And so now let's just jump right into those. Take a look at all the tank tier set bonuses and consider what we think is going to be the best for Season 4. And I think for the most part, these all line up with what the community is voting for. There are still 6 days left on the vote, so that may change, but anyways, let's start with Blood Death Knight. The Season 1 tier set bonus was a good concept. It was an interesting idea, right? It gave you runes back, it gave you bone shield charges consumed, give you damage and haste. Like, damage and haste is a blood DK, runes back, that's all good. The problem is that it was built on consuming bone charges, which is fine in Mythic Plus. You know, you're being auto-attacked pretty often in Mythic Plus, you're consuming those bone shield charges, mostly on cooldown. And when you use Tombstone, that does count as 5 bone shield charges, assuming you're using all 5. The problem is that in raids, you're probably only tanking about half the time, and even then, about half of the time that you are tanking, the boss is going to be spam casting spells on the raid. So this kind of tier set bonus might be 25% as effective in raid as it is in Mythic Plus. That's just not that great. The Season 2 tier set bonus is a lot more universally usable in Mythic Plus than the Season 3 one. Season 2 one, not my favorite. It makes it so that your Heartstrike and Blood Boil deal more damage, just baseline. That's useful for Mythic Plus, useful for AoE threat, picking up mobs at the start of pulls, that's all good. And you have a chance to get Vampiric Blood as a random proc. And then the 4-piece bonus makes it so that when you get Vampiric Blood, whether you hard cast it or you get it as a proc, you also get a 10% strength bonus, and your Heartstrike and Blood Boil extend that strength bonus. So the reason that this tier set is good and why it's kind of popular among players is it doesn't care about target count. You know, this bonus is just as good against like 50 targets as it is against 5 or 1, and that's great. It's not my favorite tier set bonus purely because of this line right here. Your Heartstrike and Blood Boil extend the duration of Vampiric Strength by half a second. So you have this incentive as soon as you've either procced or cast Vampiric Blood to be spam casting Heartstrike and Blood Boil. That's just not a playstyle that I really love, being forced into pressing basically 1 or 2 abilities over and over again at the expense of everything else. Kinda don't love that, and a lot of Blood DKs don't love it. But there is no question this is the best tier set in Mythic Plus, because the Season 3 tier set, which is quite a bit better in Raid, really only works on up to 5 targets. It makes your next Heartstrike apply this debuff that increases your damage and gives you damage reduction. Great, it is a proc that's not reliant on triggering Bone Shield charges, it's just on using Runic Power on Death Strike. All this stuff is great. Really a wonderful tier set for Raid, but it's capped at 5 targets. You can only hit up to 5 targets with a single Heartstrike, and because they never made any way for this to like spread by hitting Blood Boil or anything, it just isn't very good in AoE. It isn't very good in Mythic Plus. Not great. And while the 4-piece bonus makes it so that you can hit a pack larger than 5 mobs with A-Bomb Limb, that's 12 seconds every 2 minutes. That's not good enough for a tier set bonus. So even though I think the 2 set bonus, the Season 2 bonus is not nearly as fun to use as the Season 3 tier set bonus, it's definitely going to be the winner in the vote. It's definitely the front runner already, because it is just more universally, generically useful in Mythic Plus. Now let's take a look at the Vengeance Demon Hunter tier set bonuses and the Season 1 tier set bonus. An interesting idea. I think the numbers on this were just very, very off. It is the kind of thing where, because they said we're going to be rebalancing it, this is the kind of bonus that actually could be really good if it just got buffed by like 400%, but that's not going to happen, and there is no way that this will ever get like anywhere close to being a frontrunner option. The 2-piece and 4-piece basically make it so that your Fracture deals more damage, generates more fury, and so on, and then your Spirit Bomb and Soul Cleave have a 12% chance to deal 50% more damage. That's 6% more damage on average, and they also can give you a damage reduction debuff on enemies. 15% less damage is pretty good. If the proc chance on this was like 50% instead of 12, this would be an amazing tier set bonus. The problem is just I don't think that this is going to get a chance to get re-examined by Blizzard and get buffed up to compensate. I really love the 2 set bonus. The Season 2 and 4-piece bonus was really amazing. You know, it gave you this stacking fire damage buff based off of generating soul fragments. Now, the rate at which you generate soul fragments can kind of change based on how many enemies you're fighting at once, but this is a buff that you could be rolling anywhere from like 5 to 20 stacks on in a lot of pulls, so getting anywhere from 10 to 40% more fire damage is pretty nasty, and then also just getting 10% more healing is pretty great. And then when you couple that with the 4-piece bonus, which was nerfed at the start of Season 3, but obviously would go back to something resembling its initial power, where every 20 soul fragments you generate, you get a free 6 seconds of Fiery Brand, and that helps you to spread Fiery Brand to a lot more targets. This would bring back the Fiery Brand playstyle, which would ultimately come at the odds of the current Sigil playstyle. And so while I think the Season 2 tier set bonus would be better, I think better actually for Raid and Mythic Plus, I don't think it's going to stand a chance of competing with Season 3. I think there's a conflation happening here among players where Vengeance Demon Hunter just got reworked and it's a lot stronger. And also it got Season 3's tier set bonus at the same time. So people are looking at that rework and the new tier set bonus and going, it's strong because of the tier set bonus, let me vote for that. I think the tier set bonus for Season 3 is pretty clearly weaker than the Season 2 tier set bonus, like quite a lot weaker. It's 10% more damage, healing, and stamina. That's pretty good. It's Sigil of Flame cooldown. That's neat. That's not the same as having 100% uptime on Fiery Brand, a 40% damage reduction and 40% fire damage bonus, getting your Fracture to deal fire damage, getting 10 to 40% more fire damage all the time, getting 10% more healing. That's stronger than the Season 3 tier set bonuses, mathematically, and I think conceptually as well. But it doesn't matter. Season 3's tier set bonuses are definitely going to be riding through. The last time I looked at the vote, it was something like 60 to 20%. So that's what's going to be happening, and that's okay. I mean, the current state of Vengeance Demon Hunter, insanely strong, still one of the strongest Mythic Plus tanks ever, and really good for utility to have that sigil based tier set bonus going forward. Not a bad thing at all. Bear Druid is kind of an interesting situation, or in an interesting situation here, because I think their Season 3 current tier set bonus mathematically works pretty well. I think they really thought they had nailed it, and they were so close. All that it had to do is this bonus where you generate all these thorns by spending rage, and you have this damage reflection on the thorns. All it had to do was explode at the end for all the remaining damage left in the thorns, and it would be fine. But the problem is, in getting that tier set bonus and in playing around with it in Mythic Plus and even a little bit of Raid, I can be left with like 1 million damage worth of shielding at the end of the thorns that just expires, and that's like 1 million damage or more that I'm leaving on the table. And people who are maining Druid and playing it at a higher level than I'm playing my crappy little alt Druid have obviously had much worse horror stories of leaving multiple millions of damage on the table every time they cast Rage of the Sleeper. So that's pretty frustrating, and given that they haven't bothered with that, I think it's pretty clear that this is maybe the single worst tier set bonus for any tank this expansion. Not because of the numbers or the tuning or anything. Like, the numbers and the tuning, pretty good. It's just the design. It really is just that it didn't have any sort of bad luck protection against not taking enough damage to eat all of the thorns up. All it had to do was explode for it to be good, but it doesn't, so it isn't. Comparing to that to the Season 1 and Season 2 bonuses, the Season 2 bonus really just takes the cake. There's no way around it. Like, I like the Season 1 bonus. It makes it so that Gore, the proc that resets your Mangle, will also make your Mangle cleave and do like a little bit of extra damage to enemies, and also give you a damage done and damage reduction buff, and give you heal over time. Like, there was a lot happening with this, and it was all built around Mangle, and that's cool. But when you compare that to Mangle and Thrash and damage and rage being increased by 15%, and healing for 6% of all the damage you take, and Raise and Maul doing 20% more damage, and getting 15% more health all the time, there's really no comparison. Season 2's tier set bonus for Bear Druid is one of the strongest in the game, and I think it's probably going to make Bear Druid go right back up to being one of the strongest tanks in Mythic Plus. This tier set bonus is bananas. Bear Druid hasn't really lost any of the things that make it amazing for Mythic Plus. You know, it still has like knockbacks and Ursol's Vortex that are both really good group utility. It has the ability to decurse. It has incapacitating Roar is a really useful AoE. Crowd control, just a lot of value built into that baseline class. Also, after the wildfire, healing for a ton. Really strong class, and now that it's getting back the good tier set bonus, almost assuredly, it's going to rise back up to being one of the premier tanks in the game, barring any class changes, of course. All right, now let's move on to the Brewmaster Monk tier set bonuses, and we'll start with the Season 1 one. And if Season 3 of Bear Druid's tier set is maybe the worst designed tier set bonus in Dragonflight, I think Brewmaster Monk's Season 1 tier set bonus is going to give it a run for its money, and unlike the Druid one, it's also insanely terrible numerically as well. Now, obviously, again, Blizzard said they'd tune it up, so maybe the damage would be better, but just everything about this design is awful. When you use your crappy filler spells, you get up to 4% more damage and damage reduction. So this has this really long ramp up time of 4 spinning crane kicks or 4 tiger palms to get that whopping 4% damage bonus. It doesn't apply to trinkets and procs, only to your skill damage, so it's more like 2% more damage. It only has a 15-second buff time, so you have to like struggle to maintain this between pulls and Mythic Plus. It's kind of a struggle to maintain it at times in raid boss fights. Any time where you're forced out of melee range with a boss, you might lose the bonus, or there's an intermission, you might lose the bonus. And again, the reward absolutely stinks. And then the 4-piece bonus giving 12% more purifying brew stagger clear is okay, but like no damage component to this bonus at all. Very, very weak defensively. Just an awful bonus all around. One of the worst we've ever seen, really, for monks. The 2-piece bonus for Season 2, pretty good. 20% more blackout kick damage. That's good in all situations. The 4-piece bonus, Rising Sun Kick granting a stack of Elusive Brawler. Wonderful. Love it. This should be baseline. Rising Sun Kick having no defensive component at all on Brewmaster Monk has never made sense to me. It's completely insane. I really don't understand why it is like that. So this is a tier set bonus effect that I would just like to see made baseline. And honestly, the second half of this I would like to see made baseline or into a talent as well. When you dodge, damage and critical strike of your next spinning crane kick or rising sun kick is increased by 5%, stacking up to 5 times. This is awesome. This is a huge damage increase for rising sun kick, you know, when coupled with press the advantage and counter strike and blackout combo and all the different effects that you can use to buff a follow-up Rising Sun Kick. I've seen over 700,000, 800,000 damage on a single Rising Sun Kick when I was still rocking this Season 2 tier set bonus early on in Season 3 of Dragonflight. That was pretty nice, pretty cool, and then getting that damage on a spinning crane kick makes it like useful for Mythic Plus AoE as well. Really good sort of multi-purpose concept here, and a whole tier set that really comes together very nicely. All that is to say, it's not very good in Mythic Plus. There is nothing that gives you sustain. The increased elusive brawler, dodge chance, all of that stuff isn't really good enough in Mythic Plus for this to have a huge impact on Brewmaster Monk at all. This is purely useful as a damage-oriented tier set in raids. It did reduce damage from auto attacks taken, you know, getting the chance for elusive brawler to not reset really did mean that you dodged a lot more attacks in raid. I mean, there were times where I would go, while tanking a boss like Rashok or something, I might go 30 seconds between being auto-attacked, between all of him casting spells and stuff, but also me dodging. That's pretty cool. But it sucks in Mythic Plus, and Mythic Plus is kind of the name of the game for Season 4, so I don't really think that this is gonna have any chance of actually making it as the option. Whereas Season 3's bonus, you know, it hasn't really helped Monk with popularity. Monk is 6th in a race out of 6 candidates in terms of popularity in Mythic Plus. But these tier set bonuses, giving you healing based off of all of your fire damage dealt, giving you extra stagger absorb shield when you cast Celestial Brew, they've felt pretty nice. I've definitely felt tankier than ever in Mythic Plus on Brewmaster Monk this season. So I do think this tier set bonus has been effective for that purpose. The only real problem I have with it is this bonus right here, Breath of Fire, deals 40% more damage, and then your attacks inflicted by Breath of Fire have a chance to deal 15% extra damage. These values are just too low. They suck for raid. This is a terrible tier set bonus for raid because Brewmaster Monk doesn't really need defensive bonuses for raid. It needs damage, and it's not getting that from this tier set bonus. So Brewmaster Monk's damage is way down in this raid. It's still as unpopular as ever in Mythic Plus, but it is actually pretty decent in Mythic Plus. It's quite a bit tankier than usual, but the die has already been cast. Every other class, every other spec has a bigger group of fans or is in the meta, and Brewmaster Monk just rightly isn't, and this tier set bonus isn't making up for it. So this Season 3 tier set bonus, it's gonna be the thing. The handful of Brewmaster enjoyers are gonna be very excited about that. Unfortunately, doesn't seem like Brewmaster is gonna break through to mainstream popularity in Mythic Plus anytime soon. That's okay. Maybe next expansion. Certainly not this one. Now let's take a look at Prot Pally, and Prot Pally is the one class with a Season 1 tier set bonus that I think is legitimately kind of good. You get 6% versatility for you and an ally, and you get 5% parry chance, and you can maintain both of those buffs pretty much indefinitely. These probably would need to be tuned up. 6% versatility is not that great. Getting to put it on an ally, getting to put it on a DPS or the healer or somebody and help them like live through stuff, do more damage, more healing, whatever. That's okay. That's an interesting idea in Mythic Plus. 5% parry ain't bad in Mythic Plus either. This is definitely not a bad season 1 tier set bonus, especially if it got buffed up, say those numbers got doubled. I think people could be, you know, pretty excited about this. Right now, the front runner is the season 2 tier set bonus because it's the one tier set that's really good in raids. It gives Avenger Shield, just does extra damage and heals you based off all the damage it deals. Judgment crits also add to that extra damage, and they can trigger Grand Crusader, which means you could kind of get a lot of chain casting Judgment. You know, you Judgment and it crits and it triggers Grand Crusader. You Judgment and it crits and it triggers Grand Crusader. You Judgment and it crits and hey, maybe it triggers Grand Crusader again. Now, I think that's like a 1 in 70 roll 3 times in a row, but hey, whatever. The possibility of getting a lot of chain cast judgments is really nice. I definitely noticed in transitioning from the season 2 tier set bonus to the season 3 that I had a lot fewer judgments available, and it is nice to be able to just press your hardest hitting strongest button a lot. And that is really what Pally has been missing this raid tier, because the damage, the utility of Pally in raid, excellent, S tier, unprecedented. The damage sucks, so it would be nice to go back to this where the damage was at least acceptable. And then we have the season 3 tier set bonus, which mathematically is actually quite good. The 10% damage reduction, you think you're averaging about 6 to 8% damage reduction, but then during the empowered consecration, you're just riding with that 10% damage reduction. You're getting the extra damage procs during the empowered consecration. All of that is good mathematically. All of it's great on a training dummy. The problem is that everybody hates the way that consecration works on prop Pally, including myself. You know, you have to set this insanely powerful damage reduction buff, you know, like 20% damage reduction or so. You have to set that. You have to hang out in that all the time. If you move, you have to recast it. If it's an empowered one and you recast it, that overwrites it. That's not an accident of design, that's intended, which means they basically took the worst thing about a really good class and they like tripled down on it with the tier set bonus. Everybody hates it, and I won't miss it at all. So it seems like season 2's tier set bonus is going to be the front runner because it's really good in raids and it's fine in Mythic Plus. A lot of higher end Mythic Plus players didn't really care for it, but I think that the extra damage from Avenger Shield and Judgment crits and the healing from them is underrated in Mythic Plus, but it's definitely not as good as like a massive versatility buff for you and an ally and a bunch of parry chance. But in any case, I can live with either the season 1 or season 2 set bonus. I would love to not have to play with the season 3 tier set bonus going forward. So great things for Pally. It's all looking up for already one of the best classes in the game. Somehow they're getting even better. Who could have seen this coming? And finally, we have Warrior, and kind of like the situation with Vengeance Demon Hunter, where people look at Vengeance Demon Hunter being good right now and go, the tier set bonus, while during the time where it's good, must also be good. There's been a weird swell of support for the season 1 tier set bonus for Prot Warrior, and that's completely unfounded. The tier set bonus for season 1 stinks. 4% damage and damage reduction, and then during Vanguard's determination, you get ignore pain equal to 5% of the damage you deal. Now, initially during like the beta, this was 20%. Of damage you deal would give you ignore pain. So as long as you hit revenge every 5 seconds, you could maintain this all the time. And then this would feed into the other talent that gives you, let's see if we can pull that up. That would feed into brutal vitality, which also was quite a bit stronger. So you would be getting like 40 to 50% depending on what point in nerfs and so on. You would be getting basically a huge amount of damage that you dealt would be adding to your existing Ignore Pain, which made Warrior a lot stronger. Ignore Pain was also tuned higher at that time, and other classes were tuned weaker. So all of these things kind of came together to make Prot Warrior insanely strong at the start of the expansion. Then they got nerfed, other classes got buffed, and Prot Warrior got left behind. This tier set bonus really had nothing to do with why Prot Warrior was good at the time, the brief time in this expansion that it was good. It just happened to coincide. The 2 set bonus, or the season 2 tier set bonus, I should say, had some shield slam oriented stuff, last stand oriented stuff. There are some talents and whatever, just some aspects of the class like bolster that interact nicely with this. I didn't think it was a terrible tier set. The problem with it really was just the numbers. 15% more shield slam damage. That probably should be like 50% more shield slam damage. 2 seconds of last stand cooldown reduction. That probably should be more like 5. 20 seconds after last stand ends, you get a 5% damage reduction bonus. Like, that should probably be more like 15. All the numbers on this tier set were wrong. If this 4-piece bonus had like 50% uptime on you shockwaving enemies and reducing their damage by 15%, and you had last stand with bolster on like a 1-minute average cooldown or less, I think that Prot Warrior would have been absolutely nuts in Season 2. So there's a world where this tier set bonus could be the preferred one, the one that wins the vote and then gets a massive set of buffs and Prot Warrior is actually strong. It's just not the world that we live in, because the Season 3 tier set bonus is the one that's going to be winning, and it is everything that I love about Prot Warrior right now. It makes it so that you have this huge incentive to get your bleeds on enemies. You get this constant rolling massive damage reduction buff, you know, anywhere from 10 to, I mean, 10 with the 2-piece, but with the 4-piece, you're getting 14 to 16% damage reduction all the time. You're getting tons of cooldown reduction on Thunderous Roar. You're getting the amazing rotational cooldown reduction or cooldown reset on Thunderclap whenever you shield slam and pop bleeds off. So you're being able to like shield slam Thunderclap, it resets shield slam and you hit ignore pain at the same time, shield slam Thunderclap, shield slam Thunderclap. Like, that's very, very satisfying. It adds a lot of damage, massively reduces the cooldown of Thunderous Roar. It all feels really good to play, and just like the Season 3 Season 4 tier set from Shadowlands, I am extremely hopeful, and I'm going to be arguing really hard in the run-up to the War Within, that this tier set bonus also needs to be turned into a talent. It rocks. It's such a delight to play with. I think everybody really loves it, and this is... I know I'm not alone in this idea that this tier set bonus, complicated, but really, really good, and needs to be carried forward as a talent, just like the one from Shadowlands was. With all that being said, I did type all this up into a very, like, small... just a little my vote tier list, basically, for each of the tier sets, like what I thought is best for Raid and what I thought was best for Mythic Plus, and here it is, just a very small list format. Blood DK, I think they're better off with the Season 3 tier set for Raid, but I think ultimately they're going to get the Season 2 Mythic Plus oriented tier set, and I think that's fine. I think that that'll work out pretty well. Most people will be happy. A lot of the more Raid-centric Blood DKs are going to be upset about having to spam Blood Boil and Heart Strike again, but they'll be all right. For Vengeance Demon Hunter, I think the Season 2 tier set bonus really is the better one. The Fiery Brand playstyle, I think it's just stronger mathematically, defensively, offensively, in every way, but it would go against the existing Season 3 play style where it's all sigil based, and it is really nice to have all that sigil oriented crowd control, you know, Sigil of Chains, Sigil of Silence, Sigil of Misery, all being on incredibly short cooldowns because you're getting all that cooldown reduction out of Chains of Binding or Cycle of Binding, and then also just off of the tier set bonus, fueling all of that. It really comes together nicely, so I'm not going to be upset about running the Season 3 tier set into the future at all. I just think the class would probably be stronger if it got the old Season 2 tier set bonus back. Bear Druid, Season 2 tier set bonus, this is pretty straightforward. Tons of damage, tons of health, healing, rage generation. I think Bear Druid is poised to spike right back up into the top of the tier list going into next season. I think it's going to be one of the best tanks in the game again. It's already a front runner in terms of damage, even with their crappy broken tier set bonus. So with the new amazing tier set bonus, they're going to be slamming in raids, and they're also going to be incredibly dominant in Mythic Plus again, I think, barring any class changes, of course. For Brewmaster Monk, Season 2's tier set bonus was definitely the best for damage in raid. Terrible in Mythic Plus, and the Season 3 tier set bonus good in Mythic Plus, so that is what's going to be happening. Prot Pally, I think the Season 2 tier set bonus was better for Raid, and I actually thought it was pretty decent in Mythic Plus, but I guess I'm alone in that, or certainly I'm unpopular in that. I think the Season 1 tier set bonus could be pretty good, just anything other than this awful Season 3 tier set bonus where you have even more pressure put on you to stay in Consecration. And finally, Prot Warrior, Season 3 tier set bonus all the way, popping bleeds, doing big chunks of damage, getting constant damage reduction effect, and tons of cooldown resets on Thunderclap, cooldown reduction on Thunderous Roar. It's all gravy. All right, that's it. I am really looking forward to Season 4. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The only real uncertainties now are what are the affixes in Raid going to be, and what are the dungeons in Season 4 going to be? All right, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.